Hi everyone.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I did it. You really will have to
Yay.
bear with me, guys. This is my first time doing a spaces, so the tech might not be great.
The first
Um,
ones are always the best ones.
that's good. Oh, we're getting quite a few people. Hi everyone.
Welcome, safe
Well,
space.
how you doing, Jem?
Yeah, I'm doing good. How are you?
Yeah, good. Yeah, excited. A little bit nervous for my first one, but excited. We've got quite a lot of people coming on. As a co-host, you can keep an eye out for anybody that wants to speak. Is that okay?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Whatever you want to do, really,
Yeah.
Molls.
I think if I talk a little bit about kind of why I've done this, and what I'm about, and then people, if they want to chat or ask questions, I'm more than happy. And obviously for Jem, if I know that obviously you understand more about what I do, so you're welcome to ask any questions at any time. But if I just talk a little bit about, I kind of felt it was important to do something like this. I do this on a one-to-one level, and I have groups that I do on Zoom. So I'm a mental health coach, but I've never really put it out there on my Twitter. Obviously, some tweets kind of allude to that I talk about thought and consciousness and mental well-being, but this is the first time I've directly spoken about it. So what I found about 8 years ago was something called the three principles, and it really starts to explore a different way of achieving mental health and well-being. Um, a lot of the old paradigm of looking at the mind was very much around the content of the mind. So you'd go to a therapist, and I had in the past, and we'd talk very much about the past, what the mind was saying, kind of regurgitating a lot of old memories. And I guess that has its place because I never ever want to knock anything. But what I found was that there was a point where I was going over old memories again and again, and it kind of felt like it was just, it didn't feel right. I knew there was something not right. I went back to certain memories from a very young age, and I was like, I've been here so many times before. What am I doing here again? And then later on, I discovered what I'm going to kind of talk about tonight, and we'll carry on talking about on different webinar, on different spaces over the course of the next few weeks. And it's very much looking at the what thought is rather than what thought's saying. And how that's incredibly helpful is we start to have a different relationship with thought. Um, so if you think about how your mind, it's like you never really have a conversation with anybody about what thought actually is. We talk about our thoughts all the time, but we never really go, well, what is thought? Like, where does it come from? What does it do? And I think what really is helpful is to kind of explore that rather than exploring what the actual what mind is actually saying. So in essence, what we're talking about is the landscape that thought appears on rather than what thought is actually saying. Um, I guess the best place to start is to kind of really explore the fact that we have so much thought. You know, we have. I think Stanford University looked at the mind, and they you know, from the energy perspective, it looked like we have like up to 100,000 thoughts a day. So if you think how much thinking we actually have, you know, that's insane. And then we think how caught up we get in that thinking and how it appears incredibly real to us. And I think another part of this exploration is just looking how it isn't real. It's not true. It's thoughts actually come and go. But what happens is we have certain thoughts that appear more real than others. So we can have thinking that will just pass by because we haven't applied much meaning to those thoughts. And then we have other thinking that really grabs us. You know, it really we really believe it says something about us and about our lives and about the world or the people in our world, and it can really affect us. And from my perspective, around 15 years ago, I'd probably say that I was quite scared of my own thinking. I got into quite a dark place, and what's happened subsequently is I've understood thought from getting into such a bad place in my mind was actually incredibly helpful for where I am now. But what it showed me and it was that my relationship with my thinking was the problem, not necessarily what my thinking was saying. So I hope everyone's I hope you're getting what I'm talking about. I know it's a bit different from the old therapy model where we kind of look at what the mind's saying. And in this context, we're actually looking at what the mind is doing. So it is a little bit different. So
It
bear
is.
with
And
me.
sorry
Yeah.
to jump in,
No,
Sam, but
please do.
just to like follow on from what you're saying, that is why I think this is so important, because, well, I don't know how long we've been sort of on this journey for, but I'm not embarrassed or afraid to say, the same. I was in the mental health system when I was a kid, and it took me years and years and years. And it was only from speaking with you that I had the breakthrough, that it's like the realization that the only thing that was ever wrong was my thinking that there was something wrong. And it was just the biggest weight ever, because nothing ever mattered. And all that matters is now. And it was just everything that I'd been told, I'd been taught, or felt that I was, it wasn't real. It was just real because I thought it was. And that's all of those hours, all of those therapists, all of those different diagnoses, they don't mean anything.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. And please butt in any time. Please do. And if anyone wants to talk or ask questions or get stuck, I'm really, really happy for you to kind of rate. I don't know how it works in here, but raise your hand and Jen will kind of unmute you and you can ask. So yeah, it's that you find yourself going round in circles. I think it was Einstein said you can't cure a problem with the same level of consciousness that you created it with. And what we're trying to do all the time is cure thought with thought. And, it's like you're trying to use your mind to cure your mind is adding more to your mind. And we have to begin to see that actually there's a freedom that we can have when we get to observe the mind rather than get really caught up in it. Now, what I teach is something called the 3 principles, and I won't go too in depth into what they are now, but you are welcome to kind of write the 3 principles down and look it up and DM me with any questions if you have them after this spaces. But kind of one of the main principles, which is what we're looking at tonight, is thought and how powerful it is. Now, there isn't anything in your world that isn't created by your thought or somebody in your life's thought. It's like we're constantly living in our heads, but it looks like we're living in the world. And when we can begin to see that and begin to see this energy of thought that we're experiencing moment to moment, we start to see that it isn't actually the world that creates our feelings either. And that can lead to a lot of freedom, because we can all feel at times like we're a victim of this world that we live in. And when we begin to see it's our relationship again with the world and our relationship to our thinking that is creating that, it tends to really kind of slow it down. We start to kind of sit back and we start to see that it's different to what we thought it was. And so this is all going to sound really different. I mean, to some of you might have already heard of things like this, but for a lot of people, it's going to sound quite different to what you already know. So when you have a feeling, it will appear as if the person in your world has created the feeling, a thing in that world has created a bad trade has created a feeling. It'll look like all different things are creating feelings all the time. But what we start to see is that a feeling is a direct response to the thinking in your head. It's like 2 sides of a coin. You cannot have a feeling, no matter what that feeling is, good or bad, without it coming from your thought system. So what that means is that it starts to give you a lot of freedom in the world. So as you explore this, and again, we're just having one kind of spaces, so it's hard to go too deep, but as you begin to explore this thought feeling and you start to see it for yourself, you will realize that there isn't any object, and I'll call people objects in this analogy as well. There aren't any objects in the world that create your feeling. You have to be involved. Your thought system has to be involved for there to be any creation of feeling. It cannot come from the outside world. It's actually an impossibility. It's your thought system, which comes from whatever beliefs you have, conditioning, and what we have that from family, we have it from friends, we have it from society, we have it from culture, and so whatever you believe in, when you have an experience in the world, all of that comes in and creates whatever feelings that you're having, but it's coming from you. And the beauty of that is, again, it takes away victimhood. There's a complete accountability in what I teach. You are not the victim. You're not the victim of anything in your life. You're especially not a victim of your past, because your past is actually, it doesn't exist right now. Your past is only experienced when you think about it. So when you have a memory of the past and you feel bad because of your thinking in the moment, creating the feeling. Okay, it's one system at work all the time. But the mind is so brilliant, that memory will come and it will light up and it will make it look like it's the past. You will feel like you've travelled back and you are experiencing or reliving whatever has happened to you in the past that you feel is like a problem. Okay? Again, what happens with this understanding is, when you see that, it kind of knocks it off course. You make it have a moment of thinking of the past and having a feeling, but when you truly begin to understand the principles, you see that, oh, actually, this can't be the past affecting me. It's not happening right now. What's actually affecting me is my thinking in the moment. But again, thought is so tricky and so manipulative and so convincing. It doesn't look like that. So we have to kind of be on to what's going on. It's like it brings us back to really the true system of what it means to be human. The landscape of our experience, and what it does. So we're accountable, but not in a bad way. But we're accountable because we begin to see our thinking, our thoughts are creating our experience, and it's incredibly empowering. It really is, because those, for me, and I'm sure Jem will say, I've been working with Jem for a while, will say that as you start to see it, it's these things that look like they had power over you in the world start to dissolve, and the mind starts to calm down, and it's even when you get caught up, because you will still get caught up. I still get caught up. That there's a moment where you realise it's like, this isn't that person, this isn't that event, this isn't that trade, this is my mind, this is me, this is thought again. And as soon as you begin to see that, you're back in the room. You come back to the now. So it's not the over-analysis of your mind, it's actually coming away from the analysis of the mind. We don't want to give the mind any more traction or any more power. We want to see that the mind's always going to make up stories. At a deeper level, we are a story. Our lives are a story. It's seeing that and seeing what it gets up to that allows us to have almost a space where we can begin to see our thoughts, a space where we can detach. And it's not a detachment in a negative way of coldness. It's a detachment in a way of, you just get to observe. You just get to observe your experience. You get to observe your feelings. And as I said, it's not, you don't get caught up. There isn't a cure for the human experience. We're all going to have it. But what we do get is these moments of being able to see what's really going on, to see the truth of the human experience, rather than always being lost in it. And there is so many mental health issues, and it seems that they seem to be getting worse and worse and worse. And we all know what's gone on in the last 2 years. Whatever your thinking around it has created even more. It's got people even more into fear and into their minds and into their heads. And ultimately, it's if we can do something to help people to detach from that and to kind of get onto what is fear? Where is this fear coming from? Well, it's coming from you. It's not coming from the world, and it's coming because very innocently you're believing things that aren't true. And once you see that 99.9% of thought is bullshit, along with all our beliefs, you don't have to take those beliefs so seriously. So it's a bit like another name for the three principles is subtractive psychology. So we begin to take away what's not true. So we strip away the layers of conditioning and the layers of belief and the layers of thinking, and just take you much further back into who you were, the essence of who you are, and in that essence, we know that underneath thought there is well-being. The thing that covers up our well-being and our happiness, because it never leaves us, but it does get veiled, it is our own thinking again. So we take it back to this power every time. So it's really, really simple, and it can sound really complicated and it can sound really frustrating because when people start working with me, how do I do this? Because the mind's so used to practices and solutions and exercises. And I said, well, there aren't any. This is a conversation, or you can watch things, or you can read books. And what will happen is old thinking will fall away, old beliefs will fall away, and you'll come much more back into who you used to be. Whatever that was, whoever that is. But it's a freedom that comes back to the self. And we're all ultimately looking for freedom and happiness. And I think for me, this is what gave it to me. And I know for Gem, she's seeing it and it's helping her. And I just feel like it's a really important time to kind of get out here and really start speaking openly about these things. But I have been going on for 20 minutes. So,
it's
Gem?
been an amazing 20 minutes. I could listen to you all day. And I think, there's lots of people here and a few people that we've spoken about like mental health with before. So if there's any questions at all that anyone wants to ask, or just nothing is a silly question. And there are so many things that we believe that are not true. And it's just been a really crazy experience. Realizing that everything that I thought was true is not. And it's just really freeing. Like, I've always been working towards being the best and being the happiest, but I now realize that I already am that. And it's just, it's quite overwhelming, but very simple, and it's extremely hard to explain. So I've probably just turned all of what you've just said into some gobbledygook. But
No, you haven't. I've never done a spaces. So, is there anybody that's asked to speak or say anything? Can you see? Because I have no idea
nobody has, and I think it's it's a conversation that people are maybe a lot of the time nervous to speak about.
Yeah.
But I think if we do these sort of semi-regularly, then people might want to come and speak about things. But I don't know, Molls, there's so many different things that I felt like you've been able to teach me. And I'm trying to remember some of the most sort of poignant examples. I think the other night when we were on a Zoom, I was always trying to find out if I was sad in a moment. My brain was trying to figure out why. And I would always picture myself as that 8-year-old little girl, that scared girl, and that was where I was sort of stuck. That was where my mind would go back to. And I don't know if you can remember what you said, but you saw the penny drop in my face, and it was just, okay, if I'm feeling sad, it's just because I'm feeling sad. There can be no link. It's impossible for it to be connected to my childhood or my past. And I couldn't stop crying. I could hardly speak because I just thought, wow, I've been such an asshole to myself for so long. And yeah, and we have a request, so I'm going to accept
Okay.
Jordan. But
Okay. Yeah, I'm just going to speak to that a little bit with what happened on this. It was one of my groups, and I think I can't really remember what I said, but I know it would just be something along the lines of like the past literally cannot help hurt you now. You know, there isn't a past in the room to hurt you. There is just a thought that appears, and because you have meaning around that thought, it will have impact. And so what you saw, and which was really interesting, and something else I want to point out, it wasn't that we had to go into whatever that past memory was or do anything about it. What happened was that Jem got an insight, and an insight is just fresh thought. So Jem's got some fresh thinking around what's true about our experience. And that allowed whatever it was that was burdening her for many, many years to dissolve. It wasn't a case of having to go into that past and talk about it and reframe it. And we don't have to do any of that. It was just a moment of seeing our true nature. And as she saw that, it just fell away, and the tears were freedom. And in what I teach, it can create quite profound shifts in consciousness. And you find I find when people have insights, there are generally one of three reactions, and it is crying, laughing, or telling me to fuck off. And because it's just, I think it just spins people's brains out. But so I always know, I can see when something is happening with somebody because there will be a certain reaction. But yeah, and it's not like you just get one insight. So I've been around this understanding for 8 years, and it changed my life completely. I went from someone that lived in my head and had a really bad time to having an insight into thought. And yeah, just it was like night and day, my experience of being alive. I went to somebody that was really didn't enjoy life and got through every day for about 7 years. Before that I was really happy, but then I had these 7 years, and then I had this insight 8 years ago, and I've gone back to, I really love life again. And that's the gift of this as well, to really fall in love with life. And it almost teaches you to fall in love with life when it's good and it's bad as well. So my last couple of months haven't been great on the outside, but even today I was driving around and I was like, wow, life is so good to me, and it isn't about the external experience. It's just about what it's given me in this understanding, and what it's given me to see what thought truly is, and to have that freedom of mind, and just to begin to wake up to who I really am and help others wake up to who they are. It really is fundamentally very, very life-changing. And what I will do after this is I will put some links to some books on my, I'll tweet them out. So if anyone is interested, they can get some books on it or get a book on it. And as I said, you're happy to get any DMs and answer any questions. But Jordan, hello.
Yes, hello.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
Good, good.
Good.
First, I just wanted to say thank you. I saw this pop up, and you're just kind of reading my mind, and everything that you really said kind of lends into, I think, where I've gotten myself. So I guess I'm kind of, relieved at that. And I just also wanted to say, with this though, sometimes I feel like maybe with getting older and having kids, or just everything that goes along with age, is you learn the mind. I wonder if the downside for me and maybe others is sometimes I just find the lack of being able to be surprised with life, and just kind of wishing and yearning to have that kid experience again sometimes. I guess this is just natural wear and tear of getting older, but I feel along with like understanding the mind, you maybe kind of I don't know that you lose something, but I'm not exactly sure what I'm trying to get at, other than the fact that with just getting older, you're not surprised. I feel like nothing surprises me, I guess is kind of what I'm saying, and I don't know. You,
That's okay. No, it's okay. I don't have that experience. I don't know if I look to be surprised, but I know I can be really in awe of life, and I can see that it's kind of amazing and miraculous. And I think that in itself was something that I didn't have before I found the principles, or definitely not in my 7 years of kind of bad mental health.
right,
So I don't know, maybe there's something I don't want to ever make anyone in the wrong place, because it sounds like you're doing great, but maybe there's something a little bit deeper for you to see to bring that joy back in the world. Because what was really interesting was actually before I was going to talk about, and I didn't, was the fact of that what the principles bring us back to is this childlike nature. And it's interesting you said about you want to be like a child again, but it's very much what I've found is I am in awe, and I do look at wonder, and sometimes I can like look at nature and just be completely blown away, or see something and be like, wow, how have I never seen that before? And it might be something I pass every day, and I think the opening up. So maybe you just need to explore a little bit deeper rather than just the mind. Because
right,
what the principles does, it's, yes, we have a mind and we have thought, but we don't kind of get stuck there. We do go a bit deeper into the human experience and where it comes from. And we can talk about the infinite and energy and all this stuff. And it can sound a bit woolly, but it isn't. But it's very, very opening, and it does begin to kind of raise our consciousness to a point where we're enjoying life a lot more. So it's almost and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but it's almost to me like, yeah, you found like this thought thing and how the mind works, but there's something missing. And I think what's missing is this deeper exploration. And I think if you get one of the books that I recommend, that could be really helpful for you to see that, because I think it can appear that we become jaded with age, but
right.
that's more thought and more belief. And it's like,
Yeah.
what happens when we let go of that?
No, yeah, you're right. I think too. Well, I had been working out and doing some yoga and things like that, and I haven't been as much lately. I think all that helps. The
Yeah,
whole mind, body, spirit thing together. You got to kind of do it all. But you have some really great points.
good. Thank you for speaking. Is there anything else? No, go on. Okay. Is there anybody else with any questions or would like me to talk about anything in particular? Because I can go in any direction. You can DM as well. Let me open my Twitter if you didn't want to speak.
Yeah, if someone doesn't want to ask the question, just message me or Molly, and then I can ask, or we can read it out that way.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was a video that you sent me. It was a while ago, Molls, but it was about, I think it might have even been said maybe, but it was about, it's all, you can look at the same thing and it just depends on your state of mind. And he was explaining, some people take psychedelics to get to that place of freeness, whatever people need to do. But that person that says just dropped a load of acid, they're looking at an iron and they are so enamored by this iron. It's the best thing they've ever seen. It's incredible, but it's just an iron. But it is just a state of mind, and you don't have to be on LSD or acid to think that a paper plate is amazing. It's having, and I think maybe I was trying to connect that to what Jordan said, was seeing something is how you see it depends on how you feel or your state of mind. I don't know if that's right, but when we look at like children, animals, they're generally unindoctrinated. They don't have that feeling of, oh, I'm tomorrow or yesterday. It's all just about now, about the moment.
Yeah, well, I think there's a Thoreau quote. It's not what you look at, it's what you see. Again, it really points back to what we're talking about. And So as an example of it's always us, like something really simple. I've got an old house, and it's a beautiful old house, but I can walk into this house and I can go, oh, how lucky I am. I have a house and it's beautiful and it's old. And in a low state of mind, I will walk into the house and I'll be like, that floor needs doing. I need this doing. I need a new roof. I'll be looking at the negative. Now, this is the same house. Now, we do that about our whole lives. And again, what we're cotton on to is it's coming from us. So I really don't take my negative thinking as seriously as I used to, if at all, because I now know that I'm just projecting out into the world constantly my state of mind. And my state of mind is reflected back onto me in how I see the world. Okay, so it's really, really simple. It's like we're not passive receptors of life circumstances. We are creating it moment to moment. So we're internally generating our own personal experience of life within our psyche. And that's kind of awesome when we start to see it. And what it allows us to do is know when we're looking at something and thinking, well, that's shit, that's really us. That's really us. And it just, for me, I guess if I was going to speak to somebody with depression, they've got stuck in that state of mind. So there is a state of mind that is incredibly low, where they are projecting onto the world constantly this kind of clouded, foggy vision, and so the world always appears quite dull and dark. Now, again, it's if someone comes to me and they go, I'm a depressive, or I have depression, and again you get that identity, that belief in that diagnosis. And I'm not discounting it, because I've been there, but what I said, well, actually what you have is depressed thinking. And as that thought clears, I know that you will come back to life, to light, for that depression. Maybe it will come and go, but it definitely won't be permanent, because you start to see things differently. You start to see that nothing is permanent. The very nature of life is impermanence. And that we can get really upset about that, because the mind, the little mind, as I call it, it wants everything to stay the same. It wants everything to be as it wants it to be. But the truth of our true nature is it's always changing and it's always impermanent. And if we can start to see that too, we can flow much more easily in and out of all these different stages, all these different changes that we experience in life. We start to see that we're the present. We're not, again, at the deeper level of what I teach, it's like we are that which never changes. We are not the body. We are not the changeable experience. They are just what we get to go through. So we get to go deeper, and I think that's what I was talking about with Jordan, was the depth is really enriching, and that's something that is such a part of what I teach, because it really opens us up and it really allows us to see that change is just natural. We don't have to hold on to anything. We can always let go. And again, it's our natural state, but we've got so caught up in the mind and the intellect. The Western world has made the intellect its god, and by doing so, we've become, materialism has become such a big thing. All these things that really haven't got that much meaning, we have applied so much meaning to, and then we wonder why mankind is lost. We get lost because we've applied it to the wrong things. So again, we get to come back. So I always talk with my clients about coming home. Like, home is in you. Home is who you are. Home is peaceful. Home is loving. It's there is nothing you need in the world to be okay. There isn't a person you need in the world to be okay. You're fundamentally, you have everything you need within you. And that doesn't mean to say we don't have people and enjoy people and love people and have relationships and all of those things. But what that does, it allows us such an unconditional love rather than a conditional love. Again, that mind wants conditions, and the mind wants certainty. Okay, this is what we have to remember, that the little mind wants certainty, and we freak out because we can't have certainty. It does not exist. Okay, again, we go back to that transient nature, that impermanence. So if certainty doesn't exist, why are we so caught up in trying to have it? Why do we need to know what's going to happen next week, next month, next year? We don't even know what's going to happen in 5 minutes. But so again, it's that release. It's always the principles, and it's always about a release. It's all about a releasing of the negativity of what we believe. Now, I don't even actually like the word negativity, to be honest, because I think everything is one. So another really helpful thing that I saw when I started to understand the principles was positive and negative thinking. So I'd lived in a world previously in different therapies and all the things that I'd done, and I was a naturopath, so I'd lived in kind of that holistic world of, don't have negative thinking. Negative thinking's bad. If you have a negative thought, replace it with a positive thought. And it was absolutely fucking exhausting. And I used to drive myself crazy because I couldn't get to this place of only having positive thinking, and it felt like there was a goal there of positive thought. And what the principles allowed me to see, or helped me to see, was that there is just one thing in the room at any given time, and it is thought. I apply positive and negative meaning to it. And what I was doing was trying to control the uncontrollable, because thought is happening to us all day, every day. We are not controlling thought. We are not choosing thought. You are not responsible for thought. Okay, thought comes in, thought leaves. Thought comes in, thought leaves. We are not responsible for what's going on in our heads. So what that started to help me see was I did not have to worry about if a thought was positive or negative, because ultimately a thought is neutral. There's ones that I can get and go, that's a great thought, and I can get another that's a terrible thought, but really they're just thought. So I didn't have to beat myself up when I had bad thinking or had horrible thinking. Now, I'd previously done a lot of that. My head wasn't a very nice place to live when I wasn't well. And to have that thinking and think it was I was personally creating that bad thinking, and I was a bad person for having those thoughts, and then trying to control them with positive thinking. Well, no wonder I was so messed up, because actually how much how much of the appearance of negative thought that I believed in, I had in my head, would have made me feel terrible, because thought is creating our feeling. So if I've got thinking on thinking on thinking on thinking, and that thinking is all quite dark and piling up one on top of another, I'm going to feel like absolute shit. Now, if I start to understand what I'm teaching you, and I start to see that all thought is neutral, thought has no intrinsic value unless I give it to it, and that I don't have to worry about what's coming in and out of my head, suddenly there's a whole nother level of freedom. So we get to start to really see what the mind is up to. We get to see that the mind is constantly fabricating. The mind is constantly joining dots that don't need to be joined. It's constantly giving us quite a hard time if we believe in it. It's quite interesting how our thought can appear detrimental to us when we believe in it. Now, when I've kind of explored why it does that, because it really doesn't make sense that we give ourselves such a hard time when we do, the closest I've come to any kind of answer is it's through that experience that we get to wake up to what it is. And we get to have this experience of coming out the other side of it and seeing it for what it was, and going deeper into who we truly are. So it's a shift. Again, it's like when I said about thought and awakening as the title of this spaces, it really is an awakening to who we are. You know, we really should all be questioning thought. You know, it's such a powerful thing to do, to question your own thinking, because it opens doors to places within you that you didn't know existed. It's very much, it takes you to that deeper aspect of self, because you know you're not just thought, because you wouldn't be able to see your thinking. So you know there's a deeper aspect of yourself, because you can get a thought and go, you can see that thought, you can observe yourself. You have, you have the thoughts coming and going. You have the narrator of your thinking. So you have that thought, and then you narrate that thought. And it's like, so what's this space? What's this deeper space that's observing all the time, that's seeing what thought is? It's really, really interesting. And to me, it's one of the most important conversations we can have, is to explore this nature of thought, to explore these principles. Or, there's other teachings that may be similar. I don't know. I mean, I spent a long time in my kind of younger years exploring a lot of spiritual teachings, and I lived in a meditation commune for a year. And so I previously had done a lot of exploration work before I had my breakdown. But even in all of that, I never saw what I saw until 8 years ago, when I had this experience through these principles of seeing thought. And the wisdom and the freedom, and how I saw really almost everything I was scared of was just my imagination. So it's really, it can be challenging, because the ego fucking hates it. The ego really hates it, because you're kind of going up against it and saying, is what the ego is saying is true? The ego has been in control for a very long time. So once we challenge the ego, it does kick back. So you can get some kickback from this understanding. But it is incredibly powerful, and it does make life so much better. And I think I can say that, Jem will say that. There's other people I've worked with in crypto. Obviously, I won't say their names, but they would testify to that. That is the truth. It's just the simplicity comes back, and I think that's what we get so caught up in, the complexity of the mind. So actually, a really good guide is that when you're in complexity, you are not seeing the truth. You are stuck in your intellect. When you start to see it more simply and you come back to simplicity, that is when you're much more in the truth of who you are. And that's a great guide. The other guide is how you're feeling. If you're feeling like shit, you're guaranteed you're overthinking. There is too much thought. Doesn't matter what that thought is saying. There's just too much thinking going on. And if you can notice that rather than to get into what the thought is saying, that again can start calming you down, and the feelings should start shifting. It's a really simple system. Its simplicity sometimes makes it hard to get at first. So, but somebody has requested to talk.
Yeah, Estival has. I've just invited you up to speak. But just to finish on that, Molls, would you say that we have a sat nav, how we feel is sort of how well we're doing? If we feel good, we're doing well. If we don't, we're not. Or would you say it's our thoughts that create how we feel?
Okay. Well, thought is always creating the feeling. So it has to be like the upstream is the thought, the energy of thought. I'm not going to go too deeply into what that is, because that's a whole nother conversation. But The energy of thought. So we're like a radio. Thought is like a radio wave. It comes in. We have that thinking. It creates our matching feeling. Now, the inner sat nav, the kind of the warning system is I'm feeling bad. It's thought. Now, it's not I'm feeling bad. It's thought because of A, B, C, or D. Because then you're getting back into your mind. We want to cut the mind out. We want to kind of short circuit the mind. And so what we do with this understanding is we say, okay, I'm feeling like shit. That's thought, full stop. You don't get into the story. You don't get into the movie. Not the old regurgitation of why you've always thought you felt bad. You stop that. You come back into the now and you do the full stop and you just see what happens. Now, what should happen is over time, that thinking should start to subside. The feeling should start to get better. So when you're in a good feeling, you don't analyse thought. You don't do anything with thought. You're just in a good feeling. But when you're in a bad feeling, suddenly the mind kicks in and it wants to analyse everything. The analysis is making it worse. Okay? It's simplicity. Come back to the fact that it's thought. And that's the only thing it is. And thought will change. That's all you need to know.
Excellent. Thank you, Molls. And Astival,
You're welcome.
if you want to speak, you're more than welcome.
Hi, did you just read my mind? Because I just wanted to ask, hello, Molls.
Hi, Esteban.
Hello. I just wanted to ask, if thought is derived from feeling, but you just sort of answered that you think that there is no, I don't know if that is the right way to phrase it, but there is no distinction.
It's like two sides of a coin, okay? You have thought, you're going to have a matching feeling, full stop. We don't have to, again, we don't want to analyse too much, but it's just that knowing that when you're feeling bad, it may look like 1,000,001 different things or one really big thing, but it's your thought system that is creating that feeling. And when you go back to that simplicity, you start to wake up and you start to have the experience of thought calming down and feeling better. See, what happens is this overanalysis and this dependence on the mind working everything out leads to more bad feeling. Because we're adding more thought, we're adding more thought. It's in the subtraction of thought where freedom lies. Yeah, has that answered your question?
Yeah. I guess for now. Well, I was just, I know you just said there is only now. So, there is now and everything is transient. But thinking back to when if you are really depressed, then there is a point that you're so depressed that you're no longer, that you're just in a sort of a grey haze. You're not having any thoughts at all. You're just feeling shit.
Okay, you have the appearance of no thoughts. I guarantee you have a lot of thought. What is happening is thought is an iceberg. We have the top of the iceberg, which we see, which is what we're conscious of, and we have a shitload of thought under the water that we don't see. So I guarantee you, with depression, there is a lot of thinking, and there'll be a lot of thinking that's stuck rather than flowing.
Like a giant, huge iceberg.
Yes, that's the one.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, and that thinking is just, it looks really solid. It looks really fixed, and it's, again, we've forgotten what's really happening. That thought is fluid, and I work with depressed people, and this really does start to change it, because they start to see the fluid nature of thought. They start to see that there's glimpses of light, and we just focus on that, and we focus on well-being, and we focus on really who you are, because I don't want to focus on the shit stuff, because I'm going to add more shit stuff. So when I work with someone, I explore this system, but I also focus on the fact that they have innate well-being, they have peace of mind, they have happiness. Underneath whatever is going on, it's always there. As I said earlier, I've had a tough couple of months, but I've known that I'm okay underneath. I know I have peace of mind underneath. I know I have well-being. So what happens is then I have very short moments of being upset about whatever it may be, but they don't last. They don't seem to have any sticking power because I know it's the thought in the moment. So then they'll just disperse and I'm okay again. Now, previously, before I understood this system, that may have lasted and seemed much bigger and much worse than it was, because I wouldn't have been able to see it as thought. I would have seen it as a reality in my world, which would have held the feeling in place. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Although
Yeah.
I'm wondering about, because I suppose everyone is familiar with this phrase that life starts where your comfort zone ends.
Yeah, I don't really do that thing. I mean, that would be a case of, again, to me, how that would sound is like, oh, life begins where your comfort zone ends. That may be true in the world of if you wanted a kind of coach that you wanted to go and force yourself to do things in the world. That isn't where I come from or what I do. I'm about kind of seeing the illusion of the world. I don't want you to go into the world and challenge yourself. That's not my job. My job is to show you that it's an illusion. Now, the funny thing is, as you begin to see that and overcome your own thinking, there isn't really any barriers anyway. The only barrier you can ever have would be a thought in your head. So, and if that's just thought flowing through, that's not a problem. So you'd go and do it anyway. It wouldn't seem like such a big thing. You've got to go to your comfort zone and go out of it. It would just be, oh, that occurs to me to do. And your mind might say, well, you can't do that because of this. And you go, well, that's just my mind saying that. That's bullshit. And you would go ahead and do it. Yeah.
But
So it's not.
but how do you deal with all sorts of activities in life where you are not in that state of flow? Like, for instance, if you are doing something creative, suppose you are painting or drawing or whatever, or making music, then you're in that state of flow. Then there is only that in which you are fully immersed. But
That's sorry.
yeah, but in life, there are so many situations where you don't have that, when you're not in that particular state because of the nature of whatever you have to do.
Well, yes, of course, because like life isn't always about being in flow. Life. Okay, so I was talking about this the other day. As far as I can tell, life is meant to be as challenging as it is, as much as it is meant to be wonderful. Okay, because if it wasn't that way, why would we all have so many challenges? And we can't deny we all have challenges in the world. So we're going to have states where we're in our creative flow and it's amazing. And then we have stuff where we have to do things in the world that maybe we feel like we don't want to do, or we go through periods in life where we appear stuck. But that is all part of the human experience. So we don't want to say this state good, this state bad. We want to begin to see that actually, even in my moments where I appear like I'm stuck in life, that is actually perfect, because that is where I was supposed to be. Does that make sense? It's like we can't. Life is life. It's going to have all of the things in it. It's going to have all of what appears good, what appears bad, what appears flow, what appears stuck. But there's nothing wrong in that. So if you can.
What if you're like stuck like a really long time, like until stuck, like, and it's like, how the hell do I get out of that?
Well, then you go and find someone that teaches the 3 principles, or you read a book, or hopefully someone will appear that guides you back out of that. Because actually being stuck for too long, I think, is probably you're stuck in your head, not in the world. So again, the freedom of mind comes from understanding what the mind is.
Okay. You will post links about the 3 principles and all that stuff?
Absolutely, darling. I will post some links, and you'll have, and we'll do this again, and there'll be some books, and whatever anyone wants to know, they can just message me as well. So I know, because it can be challenging, because it's kind of for a lot of people, this is new information or a new way of looking at the mind. So I do understand that, but it's if you're listening or you're on this call, it might be your time to begin to hear this. So just kind of trust in that and just see where it takes you, and don't have anything on it as well. Again, we don't want to add more mind. Just like, okay, this sounds interesting. I'm going to see where it takes me.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Nice to talk to you.
You too. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Estival. Someone else just did come up, but they've left. I can't remember who. I know. I can't remember who it was. Otherwise, I'll invite them back. But yeah, I think Estival, we've been in a few spaces together, and we always talk about the contrast, don't we? About how sometimes it feels good, sometimes it doesn't feel good. But how would we ever be able to differentiate if we didn't have those kind of on that scale, if that makes sense?
Well, it's life. It's lifing. You know, it's not. The bad moments aren't a mistake. They may feel like it, but that's just life happening. And I have a teacher, and he once said to me, "Grateful in your highs and graceful in your lows." And to me, that's the best I can hope for. You know, it's just, it is what it is. And the beauty of understanding thought is you can go through those lows more gracefully, because you begin to understand how much you are projecting into those moments, rather than just what we can do, which is, so hold on, let me think. So when we have that projection, the world becomes more real, becomes more solid. The bad times become more gnarly, where if we can see that how much of a part we're playing within that, then we can kind of go, okay, yeah, this is a bit shit, but I'm not going to add any more to it with my own thinking. I'm going to begin to see that, yeah, okay, I can get through this. This is just one of those times. And I've been through these times before, and I'm not going to apply meaning to it. Because actually what you can find in even some of the worst times of your life, you find laughter and you have fun. You know, it's really interesting. We apply so much to what good and bad is. And again, we're making it up all the time. We're always the ones that apply meaning. Okay, it's not meaning. Meaning is us, not the world. Okay, the mind is constantly having data come through. So if you imagine it, it's like thought is data, and we get that data, and then sometimes we grab that data, give it meaning, and project it onto the world. Okay, and that data, when it hits the lens of maybe some old thinking, some conditioning, some old traumas, whatever it looks like that was happened to us in our lives, that's when it's going to get potent and have the power. Okay, because we are identifying with it. Okay, it's if we can detach and lose the identification with it, then we're free. We have absolute freedom. Now, how again we see this to be true is like people wake up and have awakening experiences generally in the most dire of circumstances. You know, there was an English guy that was held hostage and chained to a radiator for years and kidnapped, and he woke up in that state. You know, he had an awakening. I think Nelson Mandela in prison had an awakening. It's like we think that we're going to get what we want when life is good, but actually all life is neutral. And it's quite often in the times when we're challenged that the best of us comes out. So we're meant to have those times. Again, I don't see anything other than life is meant to be beautiful, joyous, dark, challenging, happy, sad. And when we start to understand that and start to get comfortable with that, then we can kind of really live, because we're not wasting our happy times worrying about what's coming next, because it might be a bad time, or in the bad times thinking that's going to last forever, because we understand the nature and of thought and the transient nature of life. Okay, so it's perception. It's always a perception or a projection or our ideas. And there's this quote I said the other day. Oh, what was it? All of our, I think I tweeted it, all of our ideas about everything mean nothing. How freeing is that we don't have to believe anything? That we start to see that we're all really full of crap. We all make so much up. We don't have to believe it. We can have complete freedom of mind by just turning inwards and reflecting on ourselves and thought and thinking rather than projecting outwards. Again, it's that simplicity. It's even who we are is thought. All those things you made up about yourself, all those things you give yourself a hard time about, none of that's true. We've all made those things up. The identity is an illusion. We get so wedded to it. I think it's so important.
Molls, I don't know if this will help anyone, and even if it just helps one person, but you'll remember when I first started really understanding, because I thought I had it all figured out. As long as I was positive every day and I tried to help as many people as I could, I'd be okay. And the past, I could just kind of ignore it. But as I started to realize I didn't have to ignore it because it's not real, it was just quite overwhelming for me. So I found when I realized there was nothing wrong, it was all just thought, I then felt a bit bad for how I treated myself for all those years. So maybe like for anyone that's just come in, or Molls, could you explain how not to do what I did for a moment? Because it was such a big thing. Like I've been in therapy since I was 11 years old, and to realize that I didn't understand. I didn't really understand, and I was trying to figure out and decide what I thought of all of that. And then I was double fucking myself again because I'd already figured out that it didn't matter. But for all of those years to try and take those previous thoughts away, I found that was probably the hardest release. So Molls, if you could say something about that, I think that maybe might help someone, hopefully, in the audience.
Okay, so if I'm hearing right, your question is, so you've done all this positive, negative thinking, you've been tried to cure your mind with your mind, and then you get to a point where you realize it's all pointless. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, exactly. And I was making myself feel bad about feeling bad that whole time. Okay. And then I got to the point where it was hilarious, and you got me there, but I just laughed. I was like, wow, bloody hell. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that goes back to what I was saying at the beginning of the call, whereas like you're not, I think where Gem saw she wasn't responsible for all that shitty thinking that gave us such a hard time and kind of mental illness. It was, and for me too, it's like when I saw that, it was like, oh my God, like that wasn't me. I didn't have to beat the shit out of myself for having that thinking. And I think when you start to see that, there is a freedom in it, but for some people it can be like, well, why did I do that, and what was that about? And you have to understand is that there's a complete innocence. You were completely innocent when you believed you're thinking, or if someone you love believes they're thinking and gives themselves a hard time, because we don't understand the system and we don't know any better. Okay, so there's something really interesting when you start to see these principles, or you have an awakening experience, is that you see that with such clarity that it was thought creating all your problems. I mean, like, there's nothing that thought doesn't create, by the way. 100%. You can come to me with anything and I will be able to unwind it and bring it back to thought. So what you do is when you have this experience and you see it for yourself via insight, which is what I was talking about earlier, this insight then kind of starts to dissolve all of that. But it wasn't like I ever beat myself up personally about feeling shit for 7 years, it was, as Jem said, it became funny. It became like, oh my God, like, how ridiculous. How did I not see it was me doing it to me? But it wasn't me doing it to me, like, and I feel like, oh, that's so terrible. I did that to myself. You know, the old inner narrator going on again. It was very much, oh, how funny. And that can be hard to comprehend, but literally I laughed. I was like, wow, how crazy are humans? How mad are we, what we believe and what we think we're doing? Like, if we bring it back to this idea that I'm teaching you, that thought is creating your experience and your feelings in every moment, and you're not responsible for that thinking, like, that comes and goes. You say, well, of course, you know, it's my thought, I'm responsible for it, it's in my head. Well, if you're responsible for it, I want you to then spend the rest of the day, evening, wherever you are in the world, knowing exactly what you're going to think in 5 minutes, and then knowing again what you're going to think in 5 minutes. Well, you're not going to be able to. You might be able to do it once by really trying to control it, but thought is going to just keep coming and keep coming and keep coming. It's like waves against the shore, another thought, another thought, another thought. And the other thing is, like, if you were in control of thought, wouldn't you just have amazing thinking all the time? Like, why would you have shit thinking, or what appears as shit thinking, if you were in charge? You would have the radio station on the best channel that you could. So again, we start to see, oh, okay, so thought is coming through me, and I'm not responsible for it. So then the worst thought that you could have in the world, as long as you don't act on it, doesn't mean anything. And again, that's freedom. You know, it's so freeing to see thought. To, you know, another thing that can be difficult, you know, if you're just on this spaces and hearing about all this for the first time, is that you don't need fixing. You just need thought to fall away, and for your natural well-being and innate well-being to be uncovered. All I was doing for 7 years was trying to fix myself, and even finding the principles. It was trying to fix me, but it was really interesting when what I saw when I got my insight was I didn't need fixing. I just needed to see thought. There wasn't a broken part of me. There wasn't a past part of me that had created damage, that created all my problems. It was my thinking. It was my thoughts. And they weren't personal, and they were coming and going, and I could observe them, and I could have a completely different experience of my life. If I can tell you, every day was like, during my 7 years of depression and anxiety and whatever else, it was, I would tick that day off that I'd gotten through it. That was it. It's like, yes, I've gotten through a day. I never truly thought I could be amazingly happy again. And the principles came along and they showed me happiness. And now it's like I very rarely have a day where, well, I don't think I ever have a day where I'm like, I've got through it, tick it off. It's like, even the bad days, I don't feel like that about. It's just, you know, it's life. I get to experience life. If I don't apply a meaning to an experience, it's just an experience. If I can come as further back upstream as I can to where my experience is coming from, which is the 3 principles of mind, consciousness, and thought, then I can just observe and be at peace with most of what is going on. Now, again, as I said on the beginning of the call, I still get caught up, I still get upset, I still get lost, but my home is within me, and I always return to it. And I generally return to it pretty quickly now because of my understanding. Whereas before I had no idea. I was just lost. So finding that and knowing who I am sees me through every day of my life. And there will be challenges. There's always challenges. As I said, life's a contact sport. We're always going to come up against things. But to know who you are and to understand that it's thought creating your world allows you to have much more, I don't know if power is the right word. Yeah, okay, much more power in your experience, much more, much more peace in your experience. You're not thrown around by life quite as much. There's something in you that is resilient. You know, it's not your personality. It's not your willpower. It's the deeper aspect of yourself has an innate resilience, and that resilience is always there. So it allows you, no matter if you get caught or you get upset or whatever can happen, you know who you are, and you know that it's thought, feeling, and you know that you are fundamentally okay. And that is an amazing gift, a really amazing gift for all of us to have. So I have been talking for ages.
Someone has messaged, and it's not a question,
okay,
but they just said thank you very, very much. It's helped them a lot. And you know, in this time with everything that's happening, it seems, whether we're being tested or everything's becoming more fear-based. And what he said is basically, anyone that goes to the doctors or with any mental health issues now, you can't even get therapy, right? Because all they care about is the C word. But what they do get is tablets, which is great because it dumbs you down, and it, you know, but we are living in a world where it is profit over people. And especially within this space with crypto, most people are here because they want to make a difference in their lives. And to mental health is the underlying part of what drives people, right? And I'm trying to explain what he's saying and read and at the same time, but I think he wanted to come and speak, but he's a bit nervous, but he wanted to say thank you. But we have someone else just requested now. Oh, can you see that someone's requested, Molls? Mine's bugging.
I think they may have gone.
Okay.
Or unrequested. It was I think it was Fibaswani. Yeah, he's back.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, but anyone that wants to ask any questions, if you don't want to speak, just DM me or Molly.
Yeah.
And hi, Fibo.
I just got a quick question here, and I might have missed this because I came in a little bit late, but I know you guys have been talking about thoughts and feelings, and I know it's kind of hard to make your thoughts and feelings kind of work together when they don't agree. So most of us often feel one way about something that we think the opposite way about. Did you go over that at all? And if you do, what were some of the examples?
No, I haven't gone over that because it may appear that way, but your thoughts and your true thinking will reflect your feeling. Okay, so you may. So can you give me an example, actually, because that might be better to go with.
I don't know if I had an example. Maybe something along the lines of, maybe you're really angry about something, but you're not, because maybe your thoughts are one way, but your feelings are another. And I was just trying to feel like, or to see if there's any examples that you guys covered.
Right.
But if you didn't, then that's cool too. But I was
it's an interesting one. But you see, it would just be, to me, in the moment you're angry, you would definitely be having angry thinking. You cannot have anger without angry thoughts. And then you might feel like, oh, I shouldn't be angry. That could be an example. Like, oh, I'm angry. Well, I shouldn't be angry. I'm not sure why I'm angry about that. Well, you are, because your feelings are matching anger, which is coming from thought. So we're all, again, it's these two sides of a coin of thought, feeling. So actually, one of the easiest things to do is just to say, well, I'm angry, rather than getting into the movie about why you're angry. And actually, the anger will probably subside a lot quicker than if you get into why you're angry. Because we try to give dialogue to everything. We try to make everything about something, rather than that's just how I feel. And if we just, well, that's just how I feel, and it's coming from thought, it dilutes it. It brings us back into the moment. But what the mind loves to do is grab the emotion and make a big story out of it. So again, the beauty of this is you can catch onto your stories and go, well, that's bullshit. I'm making that up. And you can just come back, come back into the moment. You begin to see that all we're ever doing is creating. We are creative beings, and that includes our thoughts and feelings. But again, it's not personal. You're not choosing to be angry, because why would we choose to be angry? It's the thought, feeling in the moment has the appearance of anger, but we know that passes. Again, it doesn't. It looks to me like we are meant to get thoughts and feelings because that's what we get. But if we don't want to overanalyze, I get a lot of clients come to me and they've spent so long in analysis, it's almost made them worse because they're constantly going over and over their past again or their problems again. And so if I'm saying to you on this, your thoughts create your feelings, if you're constantly thinking about the bad things that have happened to you or your bad past, you are going to have that corresponding feeling. So it's really interesting. So it's like, so people come to me and they leave and they go, oh God, I feel really good after a session rather than really shit. And I'm like, yeah, because I'm not focused on the shit for an hour and a half. We've talked about really good things, and we've talked about your well-being, and we've focused on what thought is, and we've released a lot of bullshit thinking, which has allowed you to feel freer. And that's what we begin to see. We start to see that there's always this system at play. And there's another old saying is like, what we focus on expands. Well, that's true of thought. If we focus constantly on our projecting into the world the negative or what appears to be negative, we're going to feel bad. It's just the system at work. It's not that it's not working. It's working perfectly. Because if we have a lot of shit on our minds, we're going to feel shit. That's it. It's that simplicity that we come back to.
With people that you've talked to before, could you see if anybody was thought dominant over feeling dominant, and maybe they, I'm not a psychiatrist or know the brain or anything like that.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of thinking things through from a common sense standpoint. But could someone be dominant on the thought side and not dominant on the feeling side, and that's what kind of messes them up a little bit?
No. I from where I come from, the place I come from in my teaching, we have thought, feeling. They're two sides of a coin. Now, some people can appear not to access their feelings as much and can be quite shut down, but doesn't mean to say there's nothing there. And so there could be the appearance of that, but we all are the same thing. We are, there's not people that actually work differently. There's just the appearance of how that works. So we are all thought, feeling, thought, feeling, thought, feeling. So this one coin, two sides, one is thought, one is feeling. And that's what we experience moment to moment. But obviously there's so many, there's so many different types of people within that. So there's many appearances of differences. But what I teach takes us back to the fundamentals where we're the same, because we don't want to focus again on the content of the mind or the content of the personality, because actually that's what's being done over and over and over again. And we're in an epidemic of mental illness. We want to come further back and we want to see what's true for all people. And there's something in seeing what's true for everybody that creates a release and creates freedom of mind, rather than going into the distinctions and the differences.
Cool. Thank you very much, Molls.
You're welcome. Has Gem gone? Right. Has
Jordan is back, and also Max, but
right.
Max just requested before, so if we are going to be nice in English, we should probably go in order. So
okay, no problem.
Max, I'll unmute you.
Hi. First of all, thanks for letting me speak. And I really liked listening to a lot of what you had to say. I just, my personal experience with mental health, I've been diagnosed with everything under the sun, but a part of me feels like just surviving childhood and getting to a point of maturity was hard in and of itself, where does it make sense that when you're really, really angry, or when you look back when you're really, really angry when you're young, you don't even value contentment. You don't even value peace, because it's almost like the anger is a part of your identity. And for me, it was like hard to give up that anger because I thought it was a part of who I was. But once I was able to, it changed my life. But, the whole reason why I was angry is a whole story, but it doesn't it's hard to give up those emotions if they're tied to your identity. That's all I wanted to say.
Oh, yeah, really. I mean, again, when we talked about how the identity wants to hang on to the identity as well, it doesn't want to let it go. But that's what the identity wants. It doesn't, the freedom is the destruction of the identity. So it's going to always hold on to those things. And yes, again, I want to point out is it definitely has the appearance of being very, very difficult. But there was a moment when it dissolved, that when that happens, it is literally in the moment. It's so quick, but it has the appearance of taking a long time. So I know for me, it could look like it took me 7 years to get better, but I know that there was a moment where I got better because I had an insight and saw something differently. So in what I teach, I never want to make it into a big another belief that it's going to be really hard to get over things, because for everybody it's different. I work with people and sometimes it takes them a long time to let go and to see it and to really for the identity to be dissolved. And then for other people, it can be so quick. It even blows my mind. So again, we don't want to add like a belief onto that. We want to say, okay, yeah, it looked like that and that was our experience. But, what's really true is it's different for everybody. But it's totally, amazing that the work that you've done and that you've got through it and you've let it go, because so for me, what that anger looked like to you, it was all you knew. So it was so familiar, and it became like calcified thought that looks so real. But you now see that it wasn't, because it's gone. And that's amazing. That's a really amazing gift to go through so much shit and then to have that experience of awakening and see that as untrue is very, very powerful. So well done you as well. Gems, you there?
I am here, and I'm just trying to work out who's next because we've got so many requests now. I think all the Americans are coming in, and which I'm really happy about. Perception, I think you're next, and then Jordan, and then hey, Adrian.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. Hi, Perception.
Good evening, Molls and Gem. Paul from the UK.
Good evening. Hi, Paul.
Good evening. Maybe there's a delay at the moment. Yes, you can hear me. Good. I don't know how your room works, but I was invited by Esteval Solis, which is, thank you for the link to bring me here. How do you work? Do you introduce yourself first or just go straight into your topic?
Just whatever you want. Whatever you want.
Okay. Best way to describe it is I deal with research into consciousness and also pain management. And within dealing with that, I was wondering if you know about the storm technique.
No, I don't. No.
I didn't want to post in your shared folder without you actually looking, but if you go to the last tweet that I've just put out, it's a document which is basically teaching you how to control the mind if it's spinning and you're having thoughts which will be getting out of hand and trying to, so using obviously STORM as an acronym, and obviously first two letters are ST for stop, and it goes and continues for basically a page. It's very worthwhile information, and they're using it in the NHS pain clinics at the moment. So I wondered if you've seen that from the CBT angle.
Well, no, I don't do CBT. To be totally honest with you, what I don't want to do is confuse people, because what I'm talking about is something that I'm trying to remove techniques and and things that people do to relieve the mind. It's kind of an opposite thing that I teach. So I'm sure it has great value, and I'm happy to share it on my tweet with people. But this is about a removal of what we believe.
Oh, it is about removal.
Okay.
Sorry, it is about removal. It's not actually trying to suppress anything. It's a more of letting it exist, but not trying to attach anything to it, so that you don't have more
so it's not like
concatenated kind of information.
Okay, so it's not an exercise.
It's observing what's going through your mind at the time and what you should do with it.
Okay, I'm happy to. I didn't want to,
as I said.
As I don't know it, it's hard for me to comment on it. But
that's why I haven't put it into your environment.
Yeah, but if you send me some information, I'll definitely take a look at it. I mean, there's so much amazing stuff out there, especially about awareness and consciousness now, and going to a deeper space rather than getting caught in the mind. But yeah, it's just there's so much, and without knowing what it is, it's really hard for me to comment. But it does sound interesting.
What I will do is I'll retweet it to your actual account.
Perfect.
Unless you want it straight in.
Whatever you want.
Because I know with these things and the way that rooms work, it's best to make sure that you consult with people who are working in it, so that you don't step on toes.
Yeah.
And when we host rooms, we make sure that also happens as well.
Yeah.
So it's a interesting factor. So I'll do that to you now, and I will let somebody else have a talk. Thank you very much for
Paul. Thank you.
Consulting on this.
Thank you for talking.
Hello there.
Who's this?
Who do you think?
Oh, Adrian. Hi, baby.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, and I just want to say that I think it's absolutely beautiful that you guys are doing this.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. I can't do it myself right now, but it's amazing. I've just been listening for the last half hour, and I'm just like, I'm actually tearing up.
Oh, well,
it's because it's a part of my life that I don't really tend to nowadays. So.
Yeah. Well, you're in the field, so I know it means a lot coming from you. And if you ever want to join us on speaking, you're more than welcome.
You know what's really funny is that I launched a project the other day, and when I hosted a space of talking about the project, it turned into a conversation about mental health. So I can't get away from it. But I can't. I just can't, and it's just part of me. But yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for doing what you're doing, and keep doing it. I'm proud of you guys for doing it, and it's beautiful.
Oh,
I love it.
Thank you, darling. It's lovely to hear your voice.
I see other friends in here, so hi.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
So, I'll be quiet from here. I'll let you guys.
Thank you, darling. Love you.
Keep going. Love you too.
Bye,
keep
baby. Bye.
I love you, Adrian. And Molls, I don't know how you feel, but we've got 7 speakers now.
Oh my God, I've been talking for an hour and a half. I'll try my best. I'd like to hear from my crypto noob, because he's my buddy. So I'd love to quickly hear from him if he can come on. Hey, noob, are you there?
Yep, here I am.
Hi,
Great.
love.
How are you?
Oh, I'm good. How are you?
Oh, much better. Hello to you and Gem and everybody else in here. It's good to also hear Adrian's voice behind behind the Twitter stuff. So
yeah.
My question is, a lot of what I've been going through with my daughter and everything.
Yeah.
And you sent me all the material. I went through it and everything, and the whole thought, feeling, coin, and all that. It really makes a lot of sense to me. And I've come so far in my understanding of other people just because what I went through, or what I'm continuing to go through with my daughter. And I know Jim mentioned earlier in, when she was speaking about, the medical community, how, we're not really getting the therapy we need, and everybody wants to throw medicine at it. But in my case with my daughter, what I struggle with is, at 12, she's diagnosed with bipolar 3. And, we went through all of that hassle. I think you and I spoke about it before, where one hospital says, no, that's impossible. It doesn't manifest till you're 18, and sent us through all kinds of craziness. And then another hospital says, no, there's this thing called adolescent bipolar disorder, or juvenile, or whatever they called it. But, when you're talking about being medicated and everything and dealing with this stuff, that's kind of where I struggle with, because the teachings and everything, I totally get it. And, I can balance between my emotions and my thought. And for someone like her, where I can see it switching off in her eyes, what are your thoughts on how the program or the process would work with someone like her, where I can completely see the chemicals in her brain changing and her flipping a switch?
Yeah. Thank you for speaking. And we have spoken about this before, but I see now there is still the problem is still thought. Thought will be creating those changes. It's such a power that the chemicals don't change without thought. It's not chemicals running amok. There's this energy of thought that is constantly creating the change in chemicals. So what you've got with your daughter is very severe in the medical model. And to be fair, it's kind of where she needs to be to a certain extent, even though I get that you struggle with it. Now, could this really help her? Absolutely. Does she need to be in a place where she's ready to hear it? Absolutely. So what I know, and I've had this in kind of in my own life, in my circle, where people maybe have struggled and gone down quite badly with mental illness, and I've reached out to them. Now, some are ready to hear and will listen to me, and others will completely shut me out because it is not the right time for them to hear it. So what you have to remember is that for now, she's where she needs to be. So you don't shut down, because, I get people come to me on medication. I do not take them off medication. They can go back to their doctor when they feel it's their symptoms are subsiding. They'd like to lower dosages, etc. So I'm not that person that says, no, you don't need any of that. I'm very much, we'll balance it. Let's hold hands and work together. So what you may find in the future, as she does get a bit better, either through the right medication, she may have the ears to listen to what I am saying, or what another practitioner is saying, and she will find help from it. Because there's nobody that would not be helped by understanding that thought in the moment is creating their feelings, because it is actually quite a calming thing to see. So do I believe in the absolute potential for your daughter to get better? 100%. I don't see that unless somebody has a brain injury. I truly believe everybody can get better. I didn't think I could. Gem didn't think she could, and we have. So we're evidence of that. And there's we're not the only two. There's hundreds of thousands of evidences of that. But it has to be the right time, the right person, the right place. So you have to trust that where she is where she needs to be. And you have to trust that when she's meant to hear this, she will hear it. And that's as good as you can do right now, really. And I know as a parent, the struggles that must bring, but, that is the truth of the experience. And you are the interesting thing is you are feeling your thinking around her too. And again, that trust is so important. And I know it's hard to have when you've been through what you've been through, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, we've gotten to a place where she does trust me, and, we're like the dynamic duo all by ourselves. But, when she's having her feelings, she communicates that to me. And she's got a really good therapist that answers her text messages at like 1:00 in the morning. If I'm at work, the therapist will call me and say, "Hey, you might want to go home." So we've got that support structure down for us. My next question is how much of, because as we're talking about thought, how much do the outside influences, like we're on Twitter and all that stuff, and we're influenced by that. My crypto portfolio is evidence of that, but always buying when I shouldn't. But they're in these, the Telegram groups and that kind of stuff, but it's all their age group, and they're talking through things with each other where they don't have the experience to fully understand stuff. And sometimes I feel like that is a negative influence. But at the same time, taking that away at this point could be seen as, me trying to be controlling and taking away her avenue of expression to her peers.
Yeah. Yeah, I think with that, Noob, is that, of course, there's the appearance of the influences. See, it appears we're influenced by the outside world until we realise the outside world has no influence. So most people live their life as if the outside world is influencing them because they believe in it. Okay, so it's a bit of a paradox. But actually, when we see that it's not the world, it's us, that falls away. But obviously, for your daughter, she's has the belief of the world is the influencer. Now, what I would say is with that, of course, it's going to have some negative, but it's also going to have positive.
Okay.
And we come back to my original point of trust. So as if you're not seeing any great harm come from it, but you might think she might occasionally get some bad advice, that probably is outweighed by the fact that she gets to connect with people of her own age and sometimes have completely normal conversations and just, be silly or whatever it is that she does in those groups allows her to be a normal teenage girl. And I think that is so important. So we, you'll keep an eye on it. You can balance it out, but if it becomes too detrimental, you will know. Now,
Okay.
I used to worry about my son on the PlayStation all the time. Now he's working. He's 19. He goes on it still, but I had so much worrying about that, previously that I didn't need to worry about because, of course, it was gonna change because the nature of life is change. So again, with her, with those things, that will change at some point. But we have to allow them. See, even with everything that she's going on, we have to allow them their own wisdom and their own trust and let them make their own choices. Unless, like I said, you can see it's really detrimental, then you would step in.
Okay. And that's a lot of what we talk about is that, trying to relate. So my kids, they all know everything I've ever done my entire life. Some parents keep it from them because they don't want them to know that their parents did stupid shit. For me, this is the stupid shit I did. These are the choices I could have made beforehand. These are the outcomes that could have happened. And just know that, things are going to change. Your outlook right now in this moment is going to be completely different 5 years from now, which is going to be completely different 10 years from now. And she seems really open to all that. And, that's where I have to keep trusting, I guess, because I don't think she's just telling me the answers I think I want to hear, you know? So, we'll see.
Yeah. And trust that she's got you, for me, like she's got a dad like you, so she'll be okay. And I kind of, that to me is an amazing thing. Trust her and trust yourself. And
Okay.
you've done really well, like with what you've been through. You've both done amazingly to get where you are now. And, as we said, that, the nature of life is change, so it will change. And just see where it goes. You've got your eye on the ball.
Yeah. It's interesting having gone through this, how my attitude towards other people, especially my employees, how I can understand things a lot better of stuff they're going through. So it's definitely helped my empathy level.
Yeah, that's a good thing. That's a really good thing. I mean, sometimes the tough lessons, that's what they do for us. We'd rather have not gone through them, but we always get gifts from them as well.
Yeah.
So it's just noticing that. But, you're doing amazing.
Well, I appreciate both of you doing this, and I will turn the time over to someone else.
Thank you, Newbie. Love you, darling.
Love you guys too. See ya.
Bye.
That was really beautiful, and I've messaged you because I think
okay.
No, not you, noob.
Oh.
Because, well, like I said, I'm not afraid to speak, but I got my first label when I was 13 because I couldn't cope with life. I was too emotional, too sensitive, and I think if there's anything that I can help you with, Noob, in regards to what your daughter's going through at the same time, I feel like because I went through it, I can maybe give a helping hand. And it's just really nice that people are sharing. We have a few people that haven't spoken. V's here. I don't know if you know V Molls, but she's another lovely mental health pusher. But we've got 1984. You've not spoken. We've got Newcash. You've not spoken. So if you guys want to unmute yourselves.
Okay, I'm probably going to finish up about 10 because it's nearly 2 hours and it's quite exhausting. So I love it, but
I'll
it's
just be
exhausting.
quick.
No, it's fine. We've got 20 minutes, but I'm just so I can just so everyone's aware. That's all.
Yeah, me and Molls are going to be sleeping for the next 2 days. So cheers.
Thanks for doing this. It's awesome. I've been listening for a while now, and I won't get into the details, but I've been through my own journeys, as we all have, and that's just really great stuff. I wanted to ask, I'm not really familiar, you mentioned your principles a few times, and I'll be, looking for some of that resource, but, do you talk at all about like gratitude and how important that is, and just, when you feel like maybe you're feeling victimized or, the world is getting you down, and we forget so easily what we do have. I think that, and that's been a big revelation for me, I think, recently.
Yeah, that's lovely. Thank you for speaking. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, likewise.
I think it's really interesting. It's not a gratitude where I have to have a gratitude journal. I have to remember to be grateful. What's happened to me, and I used to do those things before, and they never really did much, to be fair, for me personally. But what happened with the principles was slowly over the years of understanding, my gratefulness has kind of been innate. It's something that just seems to be there. Now, of course, it gets covered up and I don't see it all the time, but there's a natural gratitude for life. There's a natural reverence for life. There's a natural awe for life. And again, not constantly, we're human. We're here to have the human experience. I remember and I forget, but I never have to remember to be grateful. It's really organic and natural. And that's what I love about this understanding. Everything becomes that. We're never forcing anything. We're never saying you have to wake up every morning and do this, or you have to do that, or you have to meditate, or, and I've done all of those things and, and enjoyed them at times, but this is such an organic way of living. Now, what it does connect you to is this innate wisdom. So the principles are always a description, but never a prescription. So I'm never going to work with a client and tell them what to do or give them an exercise to do. It's always a description of the system, of how life works, of how thought works, about who we are. Now, what that leads to is them really waking up to their own wisdom and seeing their own wisdom. It's like an uncovering. And in that, it may occur to them to meditate, to write a gratitude journal. Now, that's great. If they come to me and go, I had an insight and it's almost like I'm compelled to do this. And I'm like, fantastic. I would never tell them to do that. But as I said, for me, it's very much a very natural gratefulness for the experience of life. Again, I really want to labour to everybody, like, I know this stuff, I've seen it, I teach it, I've been around it for years. I still fall down the rabbit hole of thought feeling. It still can sometimes look real to me. I can still get upset. But as I said, there's this something that allows me to come out of it and see that it was me, it was my thinking, it was transitory, and I come back to my truth. So it's just a little bit different. And again, there's nothing right or wrong. You know, I don't judge what anyone else teaches or does or any of that stuff. It's just, this is what I found works, what's worked for the people that I've taught, and how it strips away the beliefs, the ideas, the thoughts, to a certain extent, the identity of who we think we are. And that's, for me, what has led to a deep freedom and a deep gratitude to life. So has that answered your question, 1984?
Yes, that was great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And we have V has come back. So you two are going to
Hi,
get on
V.
really well. Trust me.
Hi, V.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. One of those weeks. I saw.
Oh, yeah. I've had one of those.
Yeah. No, I mean, I just saw I love mental health spaces, as you know, I run one too. But it was just interesting. I liked that topic. What is thought? And, you know, I didn't get to hear enough of the conversation to feel like I can input anything specifically at the moment. But, you know, I am a person who overthinks and thinks a lot.
Yeah.
Constantly, like, just running through conversations or, you know, ways I could have done things better, or just situations that I've had through the week. So it's funny that lately I've been running through one recently that's just been boggling my mind. So it was just interesting to see a topic related to what is thought. And I'm like, oh, I have too many right now.
Well, I said earlier, we have 100,000 a day. So that's a lot of thinking. I think sometimes we're just like more aware of them. We're much more in them. And yeah, it's a shame you didn't listen to some of the earlier stuff, because I'm getting a bit tired now. But it's very much about catching the fact that it's all neutral thought. You know, whatever that thinking looks like, it's actually a neutral thought. It doesn't say anything. You know, a lovely thing that I said to clients is like, be where your body is, not where your mind is. It kind of brings the mind back into the moment. So it's like, what that unnecessary traveling to the future or the past, or I should have said this, or I need to do that, or it's like that narration that's going on. It's just noise. It's just literally noise. But we kind of listen to it when we don't have to. And if we start to deepen our understanding of what this call's about, which is what is thought, which is this transient energy that comes and goes, we can get, as I said, I get caught, but I get caught and I go, oh, God, look at me making up movies, making up stories. So I don't need to go there. It's like, it's absolute bullshit. And it just brings me back into the moment. I just come straight back into the now. And that's the beauty of challenging our own thinking, or observing our own thinking. Once we do it, once we go, oh, that's thought, it's like we're back. You know, it's not about what's that thought about. That doesn't matter. It's about, the fact that it is thought. And it brings us back into the now. It brings us here. And that's where that's where the richness of life is, actually, in the moment. Like the mind is constantly going, but the richness is us in our presence. In our truly being present. And we're not always going to be present, and we don't have to overthink being present because we're adding more thought. But if we see our natural flow state is, we're going to be caught up, and then sometimes we're going to be present, and then we're going to be caught up, and then sometimes we're going to be present. And we allow ourselves to flow within that. And know that the moment we catch ourselves being caught up and see it as thought, we come back to presence. It's just this flow of life, as it should be. And it makes it much easier to navigate.
I love that. Yeah, that's something I have even tried myself to recognize this week, is like when I get into my thoughts, like listening to my body and how my body's feeling when I'm having those thoughts and bringing myself back to awareness. Yeah. Gosh, once you have that awareness, it's such a different state for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I live in 2 states now. And they're both perfect. And one state is I see thought as real and I'm caught. And the other state is I see thought as not real and I'm in awareness. And again, it's like I've pointed to a few things on this call tonight about the simplicity. Sometimes I see it and sometimes I don't. Sometimes I'm caught in my mind and sometimes I'm in the observer of my mind. And I don't have to try to get from one to the other, because that's impossible. I'm not in charge of that. I think I am, but I'm really not. And if I allow myself then just to kind of go into both, I'm either going to be in one or the other. And it's just that allowance and knowing that that's what's going to happen. Again, the ease of these principles that I teach is that you don't beat yourself up over anything. You don't think that you're somewhere that you shouldn't be. It's like we're all in the perfect place for us right now, no matter what that looks like. And if we can understand, I could go into that more, but I've talked for too long. But I will on the next one. But it's like the reality and the made up reality, and it's like I'll look at that next time. That's really interesting. Like we want to be in our reality.
I'm going to jump in as the executive co-host and say that I think, Molls, you have given your all, and it's been nearly 2 hours, and I think we should wind it down. I was going to say, could you give a brief overview of everything? But I think you just did. Molls has been with me. I've been with Molls, and she's been amazing. For 3-4 years, I don't even know now, but
yeah.
Normally at the end of every session or Zoom meeting, whether it's group or individual, you'll read something, and we haven't organized anything, but I'm hoping you might have something that
I wasn't prepared. No, I will.
Yeah, just something that you can leave us with, or end it however you want, but I feel like we have absolutely exhausted you.
Yeah, you have.
Thank
I've
you.
enjoyed it.
It's been brilliant.
If you talk for a minute, everybody, while I just try and find something, because I wasn't prepared. I haven't even got my books.
Sorry,
with
I've
me
stitched you right
now.
up, haven't I?
Yeah, haven't you? Thanks for that, darling.
Sorry.
No, honestly, I will have something.
This is so great. Even just for the few moments I got to be in here, Molls, you have a very therapeutic voice to listen to.
Thank you, darling.
So it literally calmed me as I came in here. Now I understand when people say that to me. I'm like, oh, that's what you mean. Okay. So thank you so much for your time and effort today and holding space for this.
Oh, you're welcome, everyone. Well, I found something, and it's actually something that you read for me when I couldn't be on a Spaces. I've never actually done a mental health Spaces, but Jem did one, and it was an American time, and so I would have been asleep. And I wrote a little something, and that's just what's popped up when I've done a search. So I'm going to just read that out. And it's, we believe our happiness is conditional when in fact it is innate. We say, I'll be happy when. There's something on the outside can bring us happiness, but it really does not work that way. The outside world contains many things on our never-ending list of wants, none of which can ever truly fulfill us. We imagine a future full of happiness when it can only ever be found in the now. When we begin to explore who we really are and have insights that wake us up to our true nature, this illusion falls away. We see that all of our feelings come from within, and we free ourselves from the misunderstanding of a world that creates them. Our essential nature is revealed, and we begin to live in a new world, a world where love and freedom is who we are, and not something that we have to find. And this is the greatest freedom of all. thank you, everyone. I will arrange to do another one. It'll either be next week or the week after. But I really, really am grateful for everybody that's on and that has listened or has come on and has left or has spoken. And Gems, thank you so much. You're such an amazing co-host. I really appreciate you doing this. And as I said, any questions, please reach out. I'll put some books on my Twitter feed. And yeah, I appreciate you all. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Molls. I'm sorry I'm late.
That's okay.
We can't do this.
No
We can't do this to her.
No,
Yeah,
it's 2 hours.
I thought it was 2
2
o'clock my
hours.
time.
Next time, just message and you can come on and speak first next time.
All right.
Yay.
Love you, everybody.
Thanks, you all.
And thank you, Molls.
Okay,
Much appreciated.
Thank you. Bye,
All right.
guys.
Bye.
Bye.